Let's get this going. Well, I'd like to welcome everyone here today to Renew Your Spirit. I'm Lynn Gaffin, your moderator. And today I'd like to welcome Ruth Shilling. Ruth is an author. She's a tour guide. She has, I copied up your resume from your Facebook. I hope you don't mind.
Oh, I don't remember what's on there, but I'll be eager to hear.
Well, it says here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 websites regarding your books and your tours. You are the creator of ancient Egyptian gods and goddesses cards. Are those oracle cards or just?
They're just cards. I actually have the back of the card looks like this, and then the front of the card it has a god or goddess with their name and a title, their name and as a hieroglyphic symbol, and then a message from that god or goddess. So you can pull a card and get a message from them, or you can just use it in any number of ways.
Oh, those are neat. I love Egyptian anyway. I've been obsessed with Egypt forever.
And I chose the gods and goddesses that I think are particularly helpful. You know, they're the kind that can give you good guidance and things like that. So it's not just about the story. Like here, this one is Isis, and it says, "You are always held in love."
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So these are from actual photographs that I took in the temples. And then I photoshopped them to make them, you know, so they didn't have all kinds of chips and things like that out of them. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So those, I'll send you a set.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah,
I'd love that.
sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You also are the owner of One World Egypt Tours.
That's right. Yes.
And tell us about that.
Well, those are special tours that I do that I think there's no other tour that really does what I do. They're small groups, so that you're not just pushed around in a big, you know, everybody back on the bus kind of thing.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And I always arrange it so that we go to the sites when there aren't lots of other people there. And then I get special permits for us to go, like inside the Great Pyramid with just our group and things like that. So,
wonderful.
Yeah.
And all that's on your webpage.
Yep. Yeah. I think the easiest thing for people is to go to the one that's my name, ruthshilling.com.
Okay.
And then that one has links to all the other ones, depending on what people are interested in.
Okay. That sounds, I love that. Then you are the author of Through a Medium's Eyes.
Yes.
There's a series about life, love, mediumship, and the spirit world.
That's right. Yeah.
Volumes 1 through 5, so that's quite extensive. Author of Color It True. Does that have anything to do with mediumship?
No, that's for manifestation.
Oh, neat. I love that.
Yeah. They're actually I didn't pull those out, but they each page that you color in has an empty space in the center. And then you write in that empty space what it is you want, your intent. So you can use it to pray for somebody. You can use it to, you know, bring abundance into your life or something like that. Or it could be something that you want to create, you know, more patience in your life, or something that you feel you need. So so that's written in the center. And then when you color around it, your focus goes to the coloring, and the message is going into your subconscious. And that's the most receptive place for you to take in that affirmation or whatever it is you've chosen.
So it's an adult coloring book with a spiritual intent.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. And the
Wow.
first like 10 pages, it gives you the basic steps for manifestation, and what kinds of things that you want to write and what you don't. You don't want to use negatives, things like that. So
How did you come up with this concept?
how did I what?
Come up with this concept? The
Oh, it's
coloring.
inspired. It's inspired, right?
Oh, really? That's fast. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I already was aware of the of the methods of how to manifest things. And I had worked with what they call sigils, where you create a symbol. And I knew that the way to communicate, how we manifest our lives is mostly from our subconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you use symbols, you are able to communicate with your subconscious with the language that matches that part of yourself.
Right.
So I was aware of that mechanism. And then when I had it's sort of my nephew, it's a sort of, he made a series of little drawings, and I said, oh, I can make that into a coloring book for you, and then I thought, well, this is just too much fun. I have to do one myself. So anyway, that's how it came about, and I ended up doing, I think, 4 of them. Something, because as I did the designs, these angels kept popping in, So I
Oh,
did
wow.
one which
Yeah.
is the angelic, and another one which is for, like helping people with healing, things like that. So, remember, lots of people were doing coloring a few years ago.
Right.
It's just, that was what gave me the idea.
Yeah.
Because I thought they could use this in such a positive way. It's nice to color, nice flowers or whatever you choose to color, but why not be getting an added benefit at the same time? And when you think about it, it was common for women to do like needlepoint, the things that said like bless this house.
Yes.
You see, they were actually doing the same thing, because they were doing that, the sewing, the needlepoint or whatever it was, and there was a concept that they were imbuing it with. And then if they put it up on the wall of their house, you see, that was doing that, it was blessing their house, literally. Or if they did it for another person, it was like a prayer for that person. So it's the same idea.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have somebody that I might just get one for. Yeah. I'll check out
But
your webpage.
they're all on Amazon.
Are they really?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you've got a series of manifestation mandalas.
Oh, that's what those are.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all in that circular shape, the mandala.
Okay. Oh, ooh, I like that. Okay. There's 4 volumes of that. Yeah. Then you are the author of Sinai, the desert, and the Bedouins.
That's right. Yeah, that was actually my first book. That was back in maybe 2005 that I had that published, and that was published in Egypt as a tour guide.
Oh, really?
A guidebook. It was photographs. When I did these Egypt tours, it's quite demanding. And what I would do is, once I finished doing the tours, I would go out into the Sinai desert. I had some Bedouins that would take me out there, and we would just go camping for, like a week or something. And it was just so cleansing to be out there in the desert. Sometimes we would go like 3 days and never see anything man-made, just the stars, the land. And so, it was a perfect way for me to sort of debrief from all the activities and responsibilities that I would have when I was doing the tours. So
Perfect. Wow, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, so I took a lot of
Yeah.
photographs. I took a lot of photographs, and I actually made the book because I wanted the women to have something they could sell to tourists, because the Bedouin women were just, to begin with, it seems like they did all the work, you know,
Yeah.
they were constantly working, and the men would just kind of show up for a few days and, you know, bring them maybe some food and stuff like that, and then they would go off again and the women would be stuck there, you know. And so it was a very hard life that they had with all their kids, and
Mhm.
some of them had 10 children, you know.
Mhm.
And when someone would come on one of these camel treks with tourists, the women would uh, come and try to sell things to these tourists, maybe like junk jewelry that they had found or something. I mean, you know, it was pretty pitiful, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I thought, you know, I wish these women had something they could sell that the tourists actually wanted, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I made the books, and I sold the books to them, or I first, of course, anybody in the book got a whole bunch of free books, which they then got to sell. And then I sold them at cost so that they could sell them for like 4 times the price, and they
Mhm.
could make some money that way. So
Is
that's
it
how
still,
that came about.
is it still there? Is it still in print?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. Yeah.
Okay. Are they still selling it in Egypt?
I assume they are. I don't know. I mean, when the way the contract worked is I'm allowed to sell it outside of the country, and the publisher sells it within the country.
Oh,
So,
okay. Okay.
mhm.
That's fascinating. Yeah. And then we have success and the with the violin and life.
Mhm.
What is that?
Well, I actually have a little copy here. I thought, you never know, we might get to show these things. Okay, so that's the success with the violin and life. So this was the first book that I wrote after I did the Sinai. And that was when they had the Egyptian Revolution. And so I didn't have any tours. So I thought, what am I going to do? And I'm also a musician. And that was what I did before I did the tours, well, among other things. But so this book is actually, it has all these things that I've been teaching my violin students for years. So that was easy. But I wanted it to show that there are certain concepts that also apply to life. So it's in 20 chapters, and each chapter, it tells about how to apply this to learning a skill, and then also how to apply this just in life. So for instance, there's a chapter on memorization, so how to memorize music, but it also can teach you how to memorize your multiplication tables as a kid, or it could teach you how to memorize, you know, to remember telephone numbers or anything like that. So you know, and then there's one about using the metronome, how to stay in, you know, with the metronome.
Yeah.
But then in another way in life, we want to listen to the pulse of life and synchronize ourselves with that. And for those of us, you know, who are on the spiritual path, we want to synchronize ourselves with our path, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, each chapter has the concepts for the music, and then it has a second part that has how that can be applied in life. And throughout the whole book, of course, it's full of little stories, because I think stories are the way we really remember things.
Yeah.
So the stories are like 1 paragraph type stories, you know, but I think that each one of them makes the point of whatever I'm trying to get across.
That's fascinating, honestly.
Yeah. So that's actually the beginning of a series, and this is my latest one, which is
Performing at your best.
performing at your best. And this one, I realized that the chapter in here about performing, I thought, I could really expand on that. So this talks about how to prepare for something, and then also how to deal with nervousness, stage fright, and things like that. So this one, whereas the first one talked about really the violin and life, this one is for any musician, or even like someone who was in Toastmasters or something could benefit from it, because it teaches you how to prepare for an event, a performance of any sort.
Yeah.
And so that's the second one in the series.
You're busy. You never sit around and do nothing.
Oh no, I do a lot of that too.
So how did you get started with all, well, let's take the writing. How did you get started in that? Have you always been interested in it, or did you start as a kid, or how does it work?
You mean writing the books? Well, the Sinai book, as I told you before, I basically did that to help those women, and that was more my photographs. It was really more of a photograph book. And then I just wrote some little explanations, as we went along. It wasn't a real writing project in that way. But, I've always done a lot of writing to help me with my own personal growth. I've written in my journal just since I was, I don't know, a teenager probably or something.
Okay. Yeah.
So, everybody has their own way of processing the things that we go through in life. And for me, the really good way to do it is in writing. So I'm sort of my own little psychotherapist,
Well, writing is supposed to be a good way to get it out. And yeah.
Oh, it is. And what I have found is, especially in times when I was upset about things, that I'd be walking through my day or whatever, and it's just, going and going and going in my mind. If I sit down and I just write it out, it tends to, instead of just cycling the same thing over and over, it tends to get me to the next stage with it. And then pretty soon, once you empty out all those feelings, then the guidance can come through and we can begin to see a bigger picture or see it from a different angle or whatever. But if I don't write it down, it tends to just repeat. So I've found that the writing has been really helpful with that. And then, as I began to get more involved in the spiritual path, and I would do like a question and answer. So I would write a question like that what's the point of such and such, or whatever I was, confused by. And then I would just try to imagine the wisest person I could imagine, or, being really wise. How would I answer that?
Yeah.
You know how it is when one of your friends has a difficulty, you can just be so wise, right?
Oh, I have all the answers for everybody.
When it's yourself, you're just so confused, So in this case, I would sort of play both roles, I'd be the one that was confused, and then I would let the wise part of myself,
That's a good idea.
write an answer.
Yeah.
And that actually was a very good way to move me in the direction of being able to access spiritual help, because, I was being influenced when I wrote those wise answers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So yes. And then when I started really doing more what we would call channeling, I did it all through writing at the beginning. I did it for years just through writing. And and when I first was wanting to be able to have, a direct contact, I tried a number of different things, where, for instance, you just sit down and any word or any image that comes in your mind, you just write it down. And you, after about 3 pages of just writing stuff, it begins to, come through and make
Yeah.
sense. And so I was doing it through writing for many years. And then a few years ago, they said, just speak it into like a tape recorder, or, of course, digital recorder nowadays.
Yep.
So that, because it's faster, you can only write so fast, so.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
So anyway, I'd always done a lot of writing, just to get back to your original
Mhm,
question.
mhm.
But it was only when my tour business tanked that I thought, why not write a book?
Mhm. What else is there to do?
Actually, I saw a little video with a young man. Of course, I don't know who it was now. And he was saying, we all know things, and we know them so well, we don't think it's any big deal,
Mhm.
But if everybody just shared whatever it is they know, there would be such a pool of information for all of us. So that's what kind of gave me the idea to go ahead and just write it out. I thought, I've been doing this stuff for years, I could just write this out, no problem. So that's what I did. Yeah.
There's a lot of wisdom in there. If we would just sit down, writing clarifies it. It puts it in a different perspective.
It does. It does. Yeah.
And yeah, I have a book. It's called "Write It Down and Make It Happen." And it's sitting in there. I haven't read it yet. It's one of those books. I'll get to it sometime.
Yeah.
But yeah, but no, it really does. I know I have used that at times. When things have really gotten bad, I've written down, and it does. It clears things up for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you have these two books on mediumship, Through a Medium's Eyes, and then the series on mediumship in the spirit world, love and life. Through a Medium's Eyes, is that yours or somebody else's?
Well, the idea here, I can show one of them here. Okay. Here's
Okay.
volume 1. So the series is called Through a Medium's Eyes, and the subtitle is about life, love, mediumship, and the spirit world. So all of the books are this topic. And then it's just different people. So I have Anne Gaiman and Carol Gasper and Neil Zebkowski. He's also a doctor. And so when I started really doing the mediumship, I took some different class. I took a whole bunch of classes actually, and some of them were at Lilydale, New York. And as I went to these different classes, I thought, these people have so much wisdom, and they have so much information, but I mean, they didn't even have websites, let alone books. They just weren't, that wasn't in their sort of vocabulary to do that kind of thing. They really were not hooked into technology, and I thought, these people are going to be gone and we're just going to lose this. I mean, these are the thoughts that came into my mind. And so I had another book that I wanted to write, but my guidance said, no, do these books now. And lucky I did, because Carol has since passed on.
Oh, has she?
Anne is no longer, I mean, she's, lost her memory and stuff. So she's not able to do things. So lucky I did it when I did, because that was the only time it could be done,
Wow.
So anyway, in those books, there's 7 chapters, and one of the chapters is different in each book depending on what subject they particularly are interested in. But the other chapters, I have a series of questions, and I ask them those questions, and they each answer in their own way. So I think they're a tremendous resource myself.
Yeah.
And it's a simple. They're also their ebooks. They're like $1.99, $2.99. So, you know, anybody who's interested in learning about mediumship or about the afterlife and things like that, these are a really easy way for people to get some information.
Well, that's fascinating. Were they open to your interview?
Oh yeah.
Were they?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
And as I
interesting.
said, none of them even had a website, you know. I mean,
Well, this was back a little ways when I mean, and now
well,
everybody's got a web.
well, no, it wasn't that long ago. I mean, we're talking like 5 years ago, 4 years
Oh,
ago,
okay,
3 years
yeah,
ago. Yeah, some people are just, you know, they have their reputation. They have
yeah.
plenty of clients. They have no reason to do that, and they're not interested in technology.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, yeah. I mean,
That's great.
Anne Gaiman, you know, was quite famous in her day. You know, she was in Life
Yes, yeah,
magazine, and
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I mean, she was a very, you know, a lot of
yeah,
people wrote books about her, and she participated in
yeah.
stuff. But there are two books actually about her life, but they tend to sort of. I mean, they're both wonderful books, not to
Yeah.
say anything, but they tend to sort of talk about the wow factor, you know, of, oh wow, she was able to do this, and oh wow, she
Yeah.
did that, and that kind of thing. But what I wanted to do is get the wisdom that these people have and get the perspective. That's why I said through a medium's eyes. I mean, how
Right.
do they see things? So that was a whole different, it's a whole different series of questions. The things that are in this are not covered in the biographies. You know?
Oh, that's good to know, because
Mhm.
usually you read something and all it is they different stories about what then they said this and then they said that.
Yeah, yeah, like,
And
oh,
yeah,
she went to, you know, South America and she was suddenly able to speak in
yeah,
the language of the people there. Well, I mean, that's exciting,
yeah.
but how does that help me in my life?
Right. Yeah.
You
I
know,
know.
how does that apply to me? You know, so the questions I was asking were things that would apply to people. You know, like how do you you know, how do you meditate? How do you you know, deal with things that come up in your life? How, you know, how do you use your intuition in an everyday way? You know, things that would be more applicable to people. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
Mhm.
And is that the same thing with love, life, and mediumship in the spirit world?
Yeah, that's the same book.
The same book.
Yeah.
So through a medium's eyes is included in that series. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the title is Through a Medium's
Okay.
Eyes, and then that
Okay.
subtitle is
Yeah.
Love, Life, yeah, Mediumship.
Well, that's really interesting. So, what's going on with your tours? Has Egypt settled down, or what's going on? I know I have a niece over there. I have a
Oh,
niece that
really?
lives in Egypt. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
she's married to an Egyptian.
Well, I did. I started. We, you know, they've had their revolution, and then so that was in 2011. So that kind of brought everything to a halt. You know, we had a tour that got canceled because of that, and and then they elected they had their first elections, and they elected a president, and but he was not part of the army. He was from the Muslim Brotherhood.
Hmm.
And I knew that's not going to last, you know. But there was this little window of opportunity. So in 2013, I went and did, you know, 2 sets of tours. And then sure enough, by the summer, you know, there was another revolution and the army took over and stuff. So that again, you know, turned them off. And then I started doing the tours again in 2019. So we had, you know, spring and fall. And then also this year we had 2 different tours. And I, well, actually, I could tell a little story that's it's about guidance. So I finished the tour on March 8th this year. I mean, last year, 2020. Okay. And we were beginning to hear about the coronavirus and things like that,
Hmm.
you know? And so I was going to spend a week with the family. That is my tour guide has a family, and I, like his kids are like, I'm sort of the aunt, and so I went to them on a Monday, and I was supposed to leave on Saturday. And I spoke with a friend who said, I think you should just come home. Things are getting really weird, And I said, oh, yeah, well, I'll consider it.
Yeah.
So I'm telling this to show how guidance comes to us, okay? So, but I had no intention of doing it. But I thought, I'll check in with my guidance and see, So then I sort of felt moved to check the flights. If I did decide to come early, was it even possible to get another flight? And I saw that Lufthansa was offering that you could change your flight with no penalty. Oh, that's interesting. So, so then it was sort of like being like the thread was kind of pulling me in bit by bit, and so then I thought, well, what day would I go if I were to change the flight, right? And I thought, well, maybe I could leave on Thursday. I'll still have enough time to play with the kids and do stuff, and I just go home like 2 days early, Well, as it turned out, I ended up booking a flight on Wednesday and changing it. It all happened within half an hour, And so that meant I had to leave at like 3:00 in the morning on Wednesday. So I only had one day to be with the family, and the kids like, yeah, you can't leave. It made me feel nice, but anyway, as soon as I made that reservation, I just felt this was absolutely the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I felt bad that the kids were upset, and I had told them I, would play with them for the week and stuff, but I had no doubt that I was doing the right thing, and which is a wonderful feeling to have when we have decisions to make, and so then I left like Wednesday morning, at 3:00 in the morning, and by the time I arrived in Boston, it was like 6:00 in the evening or whatever. It's our time here. Well, that was the evening that they closed the borders.
Oh, gee.
That was March 11th.
Oh, my.
There were no flights that were allowed to come in from Germany, and I had flown, via Germany. If I had not gotten that guidance and not followed it, I would have been either stuck in Egypt or stuck in Germany with no way to get back. Now, they were allowing US citizens to come back in, but how can you arrive if the pilot and the stewardess can't get off the flight to have a hotel before they fly back home? Fly back. So there were no flights. I would have just been stuck.
Oh, my gosh.
Absolutely stuck.
Wow.
And I tell that story because I think it's important to realize as we do our spiritual work and work on the spiritual path, this stuff is very worthwhile in everyday life. This isn't just to have, mountaintop experiences. This is something which helps us. To begin with, I had that sense of peace that I had made the right decision. And if I didn't have that connection with spirit and that guidance and the trust and faith that when I get that guidance, it's right, I could have been, thinking, gee, did I make the right choice? Was this the right thing? And it would have been a whole different experience. As it turned out, it was the smoothest travel, the smoothest trip I've ever had with more than 50 trips going back and forth.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, everything just worked out
Yeah.
like clockwork.
Yeah.
You know, I got a great seat on the plane. You know, there were no difficulties, no holdups. Of course, nobody was flying. So when I got into Boston, I didn't even have to wait in line. I just walked up and put my passport in. I've had to wait like an hour and a half in line before.
Mhm.
You know, it was just smooth sailing the whole way. You know, there was somebody there to pick me up. Couldn't have been easier. Wednesday night, I was home in my own little bed while I could have been stuck someplace, just,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
pulling my hair out.
Yeah.
That's the value in an everyday way of us doing our work with developing our ability to hear spirit.
And that's it. You tuned in, you asked for the help, you asked for the question.
Yeah.
And then you have to be open to receive it.
Yeah.
And then and it's intuition, it comes as a feeling, and that we just have to pay attention to what's going on around us, within us.
Mm-hmm.
And that and the thing is to ask.
Yeah.
They're there to help us, but they won't do it without us.
Yeah, we still have to do the steps, you know, ourselves. And part of why I like that story is that it shows there were a number of different components. You see, I got it first with a person actually saying it to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So the guidance isn't always just like, you know, a voice that comes in like that. You know, so I say that because I want people to know that we're being guided, but it sometimes it's just a person saying to us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we know sometimes a book falls off the shelf or something like that, but we want to be open to all different avenues of how it might come. And then in the end, we have to make that choice within ourselves, you know, to check in how it feels.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, just because somebody says something to me doesn't mean it's direct guidance, you know.
I was speaking with someone last week, and they were wanting an answer to a question, and all of a sudden a truck came by. Written on the side was the answer that she needed.
Don't you love it?
So it comes from any place.
Yeah.
You know, it's all, you know, it's a song. It's somebody, like you say, somebody says something. It's just, you just have to pay attention. Nobody's going to come over and knock you on the head and say, this is your answer.
Yeah. And one of the things I'm actually doing a workshop at Lilydale for how to accessing guidance and stuff like that.
Good.
And one of the things I want to bring out for the people is that you can get confirmation in different ways. So if you're not really that sure, you can ask for a sign or something like that. And so many times it's coming to us from multiple directions. And then we see how those puzzle pieces fit together. And then that's how, you know, people can get some sort of assurance.
Yep.
Because, you know, I mean, being able to live according to how we're guided and to act on faith, the only way we get that is trial and error. You know?
That's for sure.
I mean, there's no way to be like, you know, just right off the bat, you know, you get things and then you think, now that was true. How did that feel when I got that? That was not true. How did that feel? You know, and it's that constant testing that develops our faith.
Now, how did you get started in all this with the spirit, working with spirit?
Oh, that's you want to hear the story? Oh, that's a good story, I think. You know, I was brought up in a congregational church, and I just thought these people are all hypocrites, you know. You know, like the typical teenager, you know, kind of says, what do they know?
Yeah.
They're not living that, they say that, but when push comes to shove, do they ever really believe it? No,
I know. A lot of it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. So I was not, a believer from the beginning, and I just decided this is just, religion is just something that people do to make themselves feel better, but they don't really believe it. Or if they do believe it, it's just a fantasy. Okay. So that's my baseline. Okay? That's where I was starting from. I remember once I had heard that if you open the Bible and, just kind of put your finger, you'll get a message, right? So I thought, well, I'll try it. This was when I was like 12 or something. I opened it up, put my finger down, and it says, "Oh, ye of little faith." And I thought, well, what a coincidence that is. Put that away. Don't ever do it again.
Oh, that's funny.
But anyway, the way that it really, the first real indicator I had was I was in college. I was at the University of Rhode Island, and I was studying music, and I felt like if I was going to really become a professional musician, I needed to really have a good teacher, and I needed that extra push. I wasn't just going to be able to get from what I had there. And so I was practicing and in the music building there, and it just began to really get to me because I was working so hard. I was practicing, every spare moment and everything. I was in college. My friends are out like partying, having fun, doing things, and they say, oh, it's the best years of your life and everything. And I'm just, sawing away, da, da, dee, da, 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 dee. And I thought, what if all this work I'm doing doesn't cut it? What if I invest all of this part of my life, all this energy, and it turns out I just don't have what it takes to be a professional musician. I don't have the talent or whatever. Then what? It's a total waste, And so here I am, blah, 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 and this is what's going on in my mind, right? And it begins to like gain a momentum. And so finally I just said, I got to stop. I've got to make a choice. I can't play another note until I know, this is the typical, dramatic college student, right? Yes, I have to know. So anyway, I took my viola and I went down to the theater department where they have a lobby there. And I thought, well, this is good. Nobody's going to talk to me or bother me. I've got to sit down and make a choice. Either I'm going to do this or I'm not, I'm going to, can it. Right. And I come from an academic family. So it was like when you have to make a choice, you write down all the positives on one side, write down the negatives, you weigh it up, you give a good, well thought out decision. Right. Well, the problem was I had no way of knowing. Yeah, how did I know? It's not like I had this and this and I could compare them because I didn't know. If I invest, 5 years of my life in this, will it add up or not? So it canceled itself out. I had no way of deciding. So I was just sitting there and looking out over the parking lot, and there was a big expanse of sky, and I thought, maybe I'll make a prayer, see what happens. And so I actually suspended my disbelief. I would not have had the words for that at that point, but that's basically what I was doing. And I thought, maybe I'll get skywriting, like, yes, or I'll get a big X. No, like that. So I just said, and I'm not making this up. This is literally what I said. if there's anybody out there, I need to know if I should become a musician. Okay? And then I waited. And I looked at the sky. And what do you think happened? Nothing. So I said, well, that's that. Excuse me, it's just a minute. And then while I'm sitting there, I hear the door behind me open. And I thought, oh, maybe this is going to be my answer. I made the prayer. Maybe I'm going to get the answer. And I turn around, and there is a friend of mine that I had not seen in a couple of years. Okay, so just think about it. Remember, first prayer number 1, if there's anybody out there, right? Okay. Prayer number 2, is that the best you could do? Like all of a sudden we're like on a first name basis, Anyway, so I thought, oh, I asked for like help and this is what I get, So anyway, he comes over and I said, how you doing and stuff. And I said, so, what have you been doing lately? I haven't seen you. And he says, oh, you won't believe it. He's an actor, right? He says, I'm in a new show. And I said, oh, what? And he said, Godspell. He said, you never guess what part I got. I'm Jesus Christ. Of course, at that point, the what had happened just went right over my head. I did not get that until months later. First prayer, Jesus shows up. Not bad, right? Not bad. And he was the only thing they had to work with. So they did their best, right? So anyway, so then he says to me, so what have you been doing? And I said, well, I'm trying to decide whether or not to become a musician. And then he was just what I thought was just singularly unhelpful. He didn't say, well, how do you feel about it? And, what are your desires? He just says, oh, that's just much too difficult. It's just, musicians never make any money. It's a lot of work. And what do you get for it?
There's thought, your answer, right? From Jesus.
Big help he is. Big help he is, I asked for some help. This is what I get. But anyway, interestingly enough, after we finished our conversation, I took my viola and I walked back to the music part. And as I was walking past the photography gallery, I just made a choice. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Now, it wasn't until a few days later where I thought, I made my little prayer and somehow I did get clarity. So maybe there's something to this. It went into the maybe as opposed to not.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But you see now, of course, from my perspective now, I could just hear that angelic laughter when I got someone to show up who said he was Jesus. And the thing is, whatever he said gave me the ability to make that choice. I thought he wasn't helping, but obviously somehow something did, because I made the choice. And once I made the choice, doors just opened. Within like 2 months, I was in Germany. I was studying with someone over there. I spent 5 years studying over there, playing in orchestras. And I came home to the United States 5 years later as a professional musician.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And you see, that helped me make that choice. Well, what also went along with it was I was away from home for 5 years. I mean, I came back to visit like 3 times, or twice. but during that time, that's when my ability to listen to spirit came in. Because you see, when I was at my absolute wit's end, I asked and I did get something that helped. And so whenever I was absolutely brought to my knees, I would make another prayer. And little by little, I began to be able to get the guidance more easily. And then one day it occurred to me, why wait until I'm brought to my knees in absolute desperation?
Mm-hmm.
Why not ask sooner and see what happens?
Yeah.
And because I was a musician, my clairaudience was the first one. So I was able to hear words that actually gave me guidance. So from that point on, it was just building, and getting more, not sophisticated, but more, so that it was an easier path,
Now, do you still play your viola?
Well, I used to play one day a week when I went over to Connecticut to teach, but of course now that's not happening. I just do some online stuff, people want a lesson.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So if you have any of your people that are listening, I have a thing where I called Fix That Spot lesson. And what it is if somebody, a performer, a musician they are playing a piece and then there's just one little place they never seem to be able to get that to work. I have like a whole pharmacy of remedy.
Oh, neat.
So like for instance, like in the violin book, I talk about, I had a student come in and he'd been working all week he was playing in a quartet, and there was one particular part of his part, the part that he was playing, that he could not play fast enough. And what does that mean? The whole quartet has to play slower just so he can play that one place? What's he going to do? And so he had been working very hard trying to speed that up. And he came into his lesson, and within 15 minutes, I was able to increase that speed by like 4 metronome markings.
Oh my goodness.
Significant,
Yeah.
And it's because I'm very analytical, and I can find what is it that is holding this person back from being able to go to the next level. And then I actually get guidance that tells me a little way, a little procedure, like a little exercise or something they can do that will get them there.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So it's called Fix That Spot lessons.
Well, couldn't that be applied? Couldn't that be applied to regular everyday problems too?
You bet. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. So it's not just limited to musicians.
Well, the music lessons are, but I mean, as far as doing a private session with me, like a counseling session, I mean, those are different. Yeah.
Okay. So all this is listed on ruthshilling.com.
That's right. Yeah.
Very good. Ruth, this has been fantastic. I've loved it. I haven't laughed so hard in a long time.
Well, that's that's a great compliment. Thank you. It's funny. I have thought, if I had the ability to be a comedian or something and really get people to laugh, I mean, I would feel so good about that. I think it's a wonderful.
Well, you've got the stories. I mean, you've got stories. You should write a book and include your stories in them. And that.
Well, actually, that's what the books have. All of these books, the ones, of course, the ones about the mediums have their stories, but these other books have my stories in them. And yeah, I do have a spiritual autobiography that it's pretty personal, so I haven't really felt ready to publish it, but That first story I told you about, the Jesus showing up, that's in that book. So
That is hysterical.
and I just want to say my latest book, if I can, you don't mind if I just show it.
Absolutely,
This is my
absolutely.
latest book here.
Ooh,
And this is photographs from the Egyptian tomb of Nefertari. So it's just being published now. It's just coming out. And it has beautiful big
oh,
pictures of the gods and goddesses,
yeah.
things like that. So
Now you were there?
oh,
Those are
yes.
pictures you took?
Well, actually, most of these are taken by people in my tours.
Oh, okay.
Because we all sort of shared pictures, but they've given their permission, so
Yeah.
so anybody who's interested in Egypt, this is a wonderful, and it's a good way. It also includes their the hieroglyph of their name and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a good way for someone who's visual to be able to tune into the vibration of those gods and goddesses.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when I first got a book that had some pictures of this tomb, and it was like food looking at it. And I think this one's better than the one I got. So
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And it also kind of gives you an idea about how to understand what you're looking at when you look at Egyptian art, because they weren't trying to make things look like we see them with our eyes.
Right.
You know how I talked about with manifestation, the symbolic stuff goes right to our subconscious. And so that's what their art is. It's a series of symbols. And so I explain that to people in that book.
Yeah. No, I've always been interested in Egypt, and I watch everything that comes up on TV about, when they discover all the different tombs, and there's so much that hasn't been discovered.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Especially the tombs of the queens. We have a lot of the kings, but there are a lot of queens we don't have the tombs for.
Yeah.
But this tomb here, they call it the Sistine Chapel of Egypt. It's just breathtaking.
You just wonder how they did that. It's just incredible that they could carve through solid stone and then do all these paintings and that. It's incredible.
Yeah. It's really, really, really special.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the latest book.
Very good.
I hope it'll bring like a wonderful experience to a lot of people.
And all this information is on your webpage, and it all goes through Amazon?
Yeah, all the books are on Amazon. And all the books are also ebooks, except the one of the tomb of Nefertari. Right. And let me just show here. This is, I have this in large print.
Oh.
So if you know anybody who likes to have things, they don't have to put on their glasses to read them, then it's in large print.
I didn't know her personally, but I knew of her, when she was, this was many years ago, and she was one of the best.
Oh yeah, I mean, one of the things that Anne always said is that when you do a message service, obviously only a few people are going to get the readings, but everyone should feel uplifted. So it's as well as showing the continuity of life. That's like a mental thing to understand that, but you should also feel spiritually uplifted.
Yes.
And I know when I went to a message service with her, I mean, for 2 hours afterwards, I just felt, so much power just from being in that presence.
She had tremendous energy, absolutely energy, spiritual energy around it. So. Thank you again, Ruth. I really enjoyed this. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
And maybe we can do this again later on, and you'll have some more books for us.
Oh, probably. Yeah, I'll send you some of the cards.
Oh, I'd love that. Thank you.
Just send me your address on the email, okay?
Yeah, I will. Yeah. Okay. Thank you again, Ruth. And have a great day.
Thank you. We'll be in touch, right?
Okay, good.